Hello, and welcome back to another weekly wisdom with Mathur Dental Education. I'm Dr. Raoul Mathur. I hope you've all had a great week, had some interesting cases, and are hopefully able to relax and take it easy this weekend and rest up your backs and shoulders. I want to do this week for our topic one of the more uh, interesting topics in terms of what I get asked a lot of the time. I get asked to compare owning a practice versus associating, a career of ownership versus a career of being an associate. It's a bit of a surprising topic if you compare it to, say, the older generations of dentists, where ownership was kind of almost a given. Um, for those of you who have watched some of the previous episodes, I discussed how we are seeing ownership going down. So compared to 20 years ago, we're seeing a drop of 15% of dentists that are not, basically 15% less dentists are owning their own practice compared to 20 years ago. Hmm. So I want to delve into this topic this week and to evaluate it from a few different angles. And of course, if you have any questions, please email me at matherdentaleducation@gmail.com. So what really got me interested in this was talking to a few dentists that I've known, and I've had this statement said to me at various times in my career. So, as I was an associate, I remember distinctly having a friend of mine who was a couple of years ahead of me saying that they will never want to own their own practice. And then I've heard that from various people, various associates, and various dentists throughout the years. And they've all had a variety of reasons for this that I completely respect. Uh, the possible reasons that I've heard are here. So, oftentimes it's lifestyle concerns. They just prefer a life of lower stress and being able to work part time due to family obligations. For example, many stay at home moms and dads who want to work mainly while their kids are at school or work a couple times a week so that they can really focus and lock in on their family. Those that prefer to travel for a large part of the year and work only seasonally. I mean, how nice does that sound? But I remember a dentist that when I was practicing in Australia that would work 6 months of the year and would travel. I remember once he went and spent 4 or 5 months in Japan and came back, did some dentistry, and just traveled throughout the world. Not bad. Um, but then there's some of these other reasons, worried about failure. So are not starting a practice, not going into ownership, just worrying about taking that leap and what if it doesn't work out. Scared to compete with corporate offices. I hear this one quite a bit. Worried about starting a practice because now they're dealing with these corporate entities and how can we possibly compete with them, right? Those that don't think that they have the right personality to be the boss, to be in a position of leadership, concerned that they're not enough of a people person, so introverted. I think we all know dentists that um, are quite academic, enjoy the creative aspect or the technical aspect of dentistry, and have always just tried to work on their interpersonal skills as they felt that was their main weakness, if you will. And those that don't believe that the necessary leadership skills that can kind of tie into the right personality. So the reasons in red are steeped in concern and doubt. Fear is a major obstacle for dentists that to not even kind of try to take ownership of a practice. Like I said, ownership amongst dentists is down 15% from 20 years ago. So is this good for dentistry? Is this good for dentists? The one of the main things I keep hearing is that owning a practice is just too hard. As an associate, I get to go home every day and leave it all behind me. While this is true, there comes an important time when being an associate is actually harder. What do I mean by that? Well, the associate dentist has the proverbial golden handcuff situation. So, for those of you that haven't heard this saying, both words are important. So, they are able to make a great living, which is the golden part, but they are tied to the chair in order to do it, which is the handcuffs part. The owner is able to eventually transition into a situation in which they do less clinical dentistry and can still kind of move forward for increasing their earnings. I still remember the first time that I had associates billing for me in the office, and I went to the movies. It just blew my mind as I was earning while I was sitting there in the cinema. I remember the surreal feeling as I got my popcorn and sat down and just felt like I was cheating or I was playing hooky on school or I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. I remember I must have called the office 3 or 4 times of the day just to check in, and they told me to relax and that everything was fine. So it took some getting used to. Injuries. So, in addition, as I've gotten older, I feel that I have been able to avoid a lot of the repetitive stress injuries that some other dentists have had simply because I'm not tied to the chair all the time. So, from the Academy of General Dentistry, musculoskeletal disorders in dentistry have been widely evaluated. Research suggests that the prevalence of MSDs in dentistry ranges between 64 to 93% among dentists, dental hygienists, and dental students. One study compared the MSD pain among physicians, surgeons, and dentists and found that dentists had the highest rates. Of the respondents, 61% of dentists had MSD pain, compared to 37% of surgeons and 20% of physicians. Similarly, a 2018 literature review citing a study of Swedish dentists showed dentists are on the higher end of the spectrum of healthcare professionals in terms of severity of musculoskeletal injury and lost work time. An additional study found that 15% of dentists studied left clinical work or cut their hours as a direct result of MSD pain. So let's kind of zone in on that. 15% of dentists left clinical work or cut their hours. If you're an associate, that means you are cutting your income. So if we look at the career earnings of an associate, the career associate's income is tied to their ability to carry it out themselves. This often leads to a peak in earnings when they are physically capable, they've reached a high level of skill, and that's matching just their experience level. But after this peak, the physical capability can start to digress, and so do the earnings because of it. So you can see that it almost follows the normal distribution pattern that you have below, with age along the bottom and earnings on the top. In the middle, you can see that peak where physical capability, high level skill, and good experience kind of all marry into one. And that's where you might find that you're really in your zone. But after that, the physical capability starts to go down, and that's when the earnings go down. So if we compare that to an owner's career earnings, the career owner's income is tied to their ability to manage and own the practice. As long as the owner is able to A, maintain growth, B, grow physical capacity when it's needed, and C, keep their overhead under control, then the income will continue to increase. And also the practice value will continue to increase. So, and that kind of takes us to the next slide. Building an asset, associates earn a living, while owners earn a living and grow an asset. At the end of the owner's career, they could have a large, successful practice to sell and cash in on. So, for all the reasons you may have to stay as an associate, do not let fear be one of them. If you have the knowledge of how to start and run a successful practice, most of that fear goes away. So, on the previous slide, I talked about is tied to their ability to own and manage practice as long as the owner is able to maintain growth. Well, some of you might read that and say, well, how do you maintain growth? I mean, that's the part that may scare some of you out there. So that's where the knowledge comes in. Now, I've talked so much about the financial reasons, but let's look at some of the obvious non-financial reasons. More time and energy for hobbies, family, and other passions. A burst of commitment in terms of time spent at work, which eventually allows for more time spent away from practicing as long as the practice is able to run smoothly when you're not there. Systems. What I'm saying here is that you open a practice and you do need a burst of time and energy. You're going to be very time intensive with your practice for the first little while. But that's not a whole career of that. I mean, granted, yes, you are going to be at the movies like I was, or at home, or with your family, and your phone may ring and you'll have to answer a question. That's kind of the cross to bear. However, you won't be tied to that chair all the time. potentially better health from just practicing less over your career, and just the holistic benefits of forming business relationships in your community. And mainly, this is not talked about enough with ownership, but the self esteem that comes from creating something from nothing, or having that create, and then having that creation be a vehicle that allows staff to take care of their family and patients to get the treatment according to your singular vision. That's almost like a high that we never get over. And I think I've talked to dentists that have retired and sold their practice, and that is something that they miss. They miss being the person that people turn to. Oftentimes associates avoid owning a practice because of that responsibility, but being that person that everyone looks at, and essentially that responsibility is what a lot of owners who retire miss. So let's move on to a question based on last week's episode. So, hi there. I am 33 years old and currently an associate at my current practice. I am interested in starting my own practice and wish to know if you think that I'm ready. I've not approached any banks yet, but I have been contacted several times by the lending officer at my bank to build a relationship. I assume that is them laying the groundwork. I agree with you. I have $45,000 saved up and I have $150,000 remaining in student loans. I work 5 days a week currently and bill over $2,500 a day. I do most general dentistry procedures along with simple root canals and all extractions, minus wisdom teeth. Great. The dentistry is going well, and patients seem happy to come back and see me. They seem to leave happy after treatment and have gotten good reviews for the practice on Google. Wonderful. I am very shy, and I worry that my small talk and communication skills would hinder my ability to form a bond with patients. I could see myself as an owner for the rest of my career, and I would love to have my own patients and staff. I daydream about taking on the challenge for myself and seeing if I am capable of doing this. Do you think I am ready to step into ownership? Well, I without knowing more about you and knowing a lot more details, I can't give you a thumbs up or thumbs down. But my initial impression from your information that you have provided is yes. Let's go over the aspects to evaluate when to see if you're ready for ownership that we covered from last week, and let's apply it to this person's question. So we looked at things from a financial standpoint, a clinical skills standpoint, responsibility, temperament, a desire for challenge or independence, and vision. So, financial, we want to be able to access the startup capital. You want to show your ability to produce, and you should have some savings. So, ability to access the startup capital, it sounds like the banks are coming to you. I found this too. So, some of you may not be experiencing this, but you go into the bank, they find out that you are working the dental field or you are a dentist, and they're starting to think about all the items that they can sell you in terms of loan packages, investment packages, and so on. So I think that's a check mark for you in that regard. You need to show your ability to produce. I think you've done that. $2,500 a day. Now, I mean, if it doesn't sound like you're doing too much outside of general dentistry, which is fine. But I think this could go up as you grow and expand your repertoire. But you can do that in ownership. But you are showing, I think you've showed your billing potential in that regard. Ideally, you should be able to have some savings. Yes, and you do have some savings. Uh, like I said, you do not have to have close to the full amount that you know, but you do need to show that you have some financial discipline and ability there. Clinical skills, yes, I think you've got more than enough a good repertoire there. Again, I was saying in the previous slide that you could also expand your skills. And you should start to be seeing some positive feedback, and you are getting that. Patients are you like you said, patients are leaving happy, returning back to you to get treatment done, and you're in fact it's manifesting into Google reviews for the practice that you're working on. And I think that as an owner, those Google reviews could be for you specifically, and for your specifically for your office. I mean, then your office could be the one that's benefiting from that goodwill. And then also you can bring in an associate dentist for anything that you're not interested, just to keep things in house. Responsibility. Now, owning a practice is a step forward in responsibility. I'm not going to go through the whole slide just because we covered it in depth last week. But I mean, you did talk about how you're looking at carrying out your own vision, that it sounds like you're hungry for this, and that's how you want to see your rest of your career go. So just make sure that you understand the responsibility and that you feel like you want to take it on. Temperament. It's hard to say what your temperament is because we haven't talked, or I don't know you. But the main part here is that you've either maybe you naturally have the temperament of ownership, or that you understand that mainly what's most important is you understand that a certain temperament for an owner is required and that you're thinking about that. You mentioned that you are shy. But what's also interesting is that yes, you're shy, but it doesn't seem to be affecting patients coming back and seeing you. So I think that can translate to your ownership as well. The one thing I would do is have a look and see, well, what are patients reacting well to? For example, I know some shy dentists that have outgoing assistants working beside them. So it's a wonderful team where that associate takes on a lot of that communication and the dentist can focus on the dentistry. But usually, where that is working out well, the dentist still comes across as warm and caring. And the patient understands that the dentist might be a little introverted, but they're still getting that communication fix that they need. They need things communicated, that they need to feel welcome, they need to feel comfortable. So, if, for example, you're quite shy and introverted and not a great conversationalist, that's okay. But also recognize that how is recognize the entirety of what's making that patient comfortable. So when you open a practice, make sure you've got that with you as well. So you'll when you if you switch from being an associate to an owner and you don't bring along or have that outgoing assistant or other staff members that can create a lot of that conversation that's needed by the patients potentially, that could be a problem. So make sure that you're fully understanding of what's what's working for you right now, and to duplicate that with your office. But temperaments, you didn't really say in your email, but how do you deal with responsibility, stress, obstacles in general? Something to think about. But you definitely noted that you have a desire for a challenge and that you were looking to take that on, and that's how you see the rest of your career going. And that, for me, the desire for a challenge is one of the most important aspects to look at about whether you're ready to start a practice. Because if you truly have that desire, you will take care of everything else. You will work on your temperament. You will work on the financial stuff in terms of figuring out your production and improving if you need to there. And you will save money as you need to. And vision. I think you mentioned here that you are daydreaming, that you're basically envisioning what your practice would be. What type of things would you have? How would you treat patients? What would you do differently from where you're currently working? What would you take? What would be your ideal patient base? This can be a lot of the fun and exciting aspects of this stage when you haven't started building your practice yet, but you're starting to build a vision. Uh, Knowledge is power. Knowing how to start and run a dental practice can lower these obstacles that stand in your way. Shameless plug, I have an online program, How to Start and Run a Dental Practice Successfully, with 23 video modules split into two parts: Prudent Practice Startup and Flying First Year Success. So if you have any questions about your specific circumstances or just generally, like I said, you can email me at mathurdentaleducation@gmail.com. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll talk to you all again next week.